When it comes to breathing with intention and presence, there is endless aspects, qualities, and characteristics of the breath that you can pay attention to. Many different ways that you can construct a breath, and within that breath, many different angles that you can look into, and many different interpretations, integrations, and ultimately experience of the event that you can have. I wanted to dedicate this episode to zoom in and pay attention to three of the aspects that are important for me when I breathe. The first one is the creation of movement, the creation of the breath. Once you take the step of not merely paying attention to the breath, but you make the decision that you are going to transform the rhythm and the amplitude of the breath, how are you going to create that movement? What are the ingredients that you're going to use to create that movement? The first ingredient is attention. Outside the body, when you move your limbs, your hands, your legs, your eyes, your tongue, your senses are giving you feedback, and the things that you're interacting with are giving you pointers of where your movement needs to go. Inside the body, for breathing, we are going to move our diaphragm. Think about it as a hand inside of yourself. But we do not have eyes inside the body. We do not have an experience of this space through the normal senses. So the first thing that we're going to need is to place our attention on the diaphragm steadily. As good monkey mind owners, we know that it's not always easy. So this will be the first line of action for our conscious breathing practice, is to maintain the attention on the breath. My recommendation for maintaining attention is always appreciation, the desire to know something, the desire to look into something to see how beautiful it is, rather than discipline alone. So if you imagine that I'm painting on a paper and I'm trying to trace a line, it will be difficult if my attention is going in all different directions as I do it. So this is our first step: stabilize attention on the breath pattern using gratitude. Now, once the attention is there, you begin to set the rhythm for your inhale. And here you have, we change a couple of letters, intention. Your intention to breathe consciously that next inhalation is going to battle with all the other different ideas that you might have in the next few seconds. From other places in the body that might call your attention, to memories, to thoughts, to smells, to noises, and general absences of mind. So not only you want to place your attention on the breath, but once you set the rhythm and you decide, I'm moving my inner hand, my diaphragm, at this rhythm, you have to maintain the intention to do so during the whole duration of the breath cycle, inhale and exhale. Once again, here we will encounter discontinuities. We try both to maintain attention, we try to maintain the intention and the rhythm, but we will feel that we are only partially successful. If this would be a very clean wave of breath, we will encounter ourselves very likely doing small corrections, deviations of the pattern, coming back to center. So I sometimes visualize my breath as a wave, and my attention and my intention dependent on each other, trying to glue to the line pattern and often oscillating in error. This error correction skill, this error correction ability becomes our skill as conscious breathers, so to speak. So over time, I'm able to maintain attention on the breath with more durability. My commitment to the pranayama also resists the temptation of other places to look at, and therefore my skill as a mover, my ability to create the movement more elegantly and gracefully as I progress in my practice, within the same practice and also over time, over weeks or months, that is the development of the skill within the breath. So, to summarize, the first aspect of the breath that I pay attention to is the creation of the movement. The creation of the movement, the creation of the breath. When it comes to the refinement of the skill in the movement, we have to take in consideration inhale, exhale, but also the transition between one to another. So I tend to consider the breath as a four-part event. During the inhale, depending on how long you are planning to breathe, how much you are intending to inflate your lungs, you will feel as you inflate the lungs and the diaphragm pushes a wave of pressure towards your hips, you will feel different kinds of resistances. There is a wall of pressure that you're meeting, and the pressure of the diaphragm moving down to the hips and then the expansion of the ribcage at the top changes the volume of your torso. By changing the volume of the torso, the shape, we are also changing the distribution of pressure, and this creates a displacement of relative positions of organs, muscles, bones, etc. So when you are generating movement, you are doing it in an environment that is constantly changing. So in this analogy, if I'm moving my hand, here in this case, it's moving just across the air. But if I was moving through, imagine there is 5 people here standing in line, and I pass the hand and I move through someone's arm and someone's belly, and then I touch someone's shoulder. As I move my hand to maintain the same movement, I would have to move these 5 people. What a horrible example. But anyway, you get my point. The diaphragm is moving in an environment that is moving as well. Then if you push this too far, what is going to happen sometimes is like we fill up the lungs all the way to the top, and then the throat closes a little bit. And then sometimes we feel and we push kind of like the beginning of the exhale, then we went a little too far. So the way I think of this first transition is that when my inhalation is coming up, it's turning into the exhale smoothly. I imagine it a little bit like the planet. You are going up to the North Pole, and at the North Pole is a little flatter, and then you begin to descend your exhalation towards the South Pole. Now the exhale is more like releasing a weight on the floor. Think that the weight that you're releasing is something delicate, is something valuable. So imagine you're placing down a puppy or a baby, and you are going to let it go, but not let it drop. Your diaphragm is not letting itself just, but is sustaining the release, because when you exhale, you don't need to do anything. You see, the inhale, we actually need to take the inhale, but the exhale, it'll happen by itself. So the point here is to cushion the exhale. Sometimes if I'm laying down on my back, when we are doing belly breathing, we put something on top of the belly just to have that feeling that you are dropping that weight, which in essence is the weight of your own body in general. Your chest is falling as the air comes out. You have this feeling of getting heavier in your position. So this is the exhale. We cushion, the release of the diaphragm in a way that lands smoothly. And here is the fourth and very interesting moment at the end of the exhalation, where the South Pole can be a little longer. into the next inhalation. And that is because at that moment when the breath is finished, you get to allow your diaphragm to relax and be inactive, be at pause for sometimes a few seconds. Careful here that if we have pushed the exhalation really far, we might have this feeling at the beginning of the next inhalation. So once again, in the wave of breath, we would create a big disruption in that moment that would shake the cycle, the brain waves. But anyway, in terms of movement, without even going there to brain waves and stuff like that, in terms of movement, you are having this beautiful circle breath. Or if you want to look at it as a wave, you're having this beautiful wave moving in and out of your lungs. And then pushing it too much on the inhale and getting locked on your throat. Or pushing it too much on the exhale and having the urgency to breathe as an emergency. I think better consider the elegance and the harmony of the whole breath cycle, even if that means that your breath practice has to be a little bit longer. Think of an elevator. You go up and you go down. But in the two moments when the elevator goes from up, down, and down, up, people need to get into and out of the elevator. If that moment happens calmly, first let the people go out and the other people comes in, pleasant. When there is stress, when there is urgency, when there is someone that's rude and disrespectful, an unpleasant experience. So think about the same is for your breath. Besides your inhale and your exhale, clean the way they turn into each other when you are thinking about it in terms of movement. And for this is exactly the reason why, like I said in the beginning, first harness attention, better through appreciation, better through sitting with yourself and saying, wow, let me see how it feels to breathe. Let me see how it feels to have a moment to be with myself and be with the internal experience of my breath, than through discipline. Once that attention wants to be on the breath, then you're going to have to commit to your intention of breathing consciously without letting yourself be interrupted by other projects. And once you have that commitment to breathing, then yes, you begin to work on the skill. Slowly, slowly cleaning up the circle or the wave of your breath so you can look at the details of how you are, not just how you are creating movement, but how your mind is moving around the movement of your breath. Yeah. So for that reason, when I do this kind of work, I do it always on slow breath practice, really slow breath practice. Okay, so this is the first part. How do I create the movement that captures a lot of my attention? All that I just spoke about. That's the first sphere of attention. Next, where does my attention go next when I am in my breath? Simultaneously as you are breathing, as you are creating the breath is also happening in your own body. So the movement that we just spoke about, that is moving in your torso, is reshaping the volume of your whole being from here all the way to the pelvic floor. Is moving things, is stretching things, is increasing pressure in some places, is alternating the pressure between inhale and exhale, is moving towards or avoiding certain areas. So you're also going to feel the hesitation of what in me I want to inhabit and what in me I'm more inclined to postpone till tomorrow. So in other words, you open up to the whole field of perception. So from the breather, now you kind of put on the hat of being the breathed. You have a split personality as you're breathing between the one moving breath and the one receiving breath. You are the actor, but you're also the theater where the play is taking place. During the inhalation, is almost with your diaphragm inside the body, you become like a blind person that is trying to map someone's face, or like you go into a dark room and you are trying to slowly touch to see the shape and the size of the room. With the movement of the diaphragm, a little bit like if you had sonar or the tentacles of an octopus, you are feeling what are the sensations that are arising from that. You arrive to areas where the sensations that you feel are simply arising from their physiological function. But also you are arriving to areas of your body, especially on this area, on your torso, where the sensations that we feel are motivated by knots that have been created over time, habits of self-defense, patterns of protection against the environment, people, stress. And when the breath moves into these places, literally what it's creating is an opportunity for an audience, an opportunity for a meeting, for a conversation. The breath is saying, I am here. Do you have something to say? Do you have something to tell me? Do you want to share something with me? So the inhalation has the ability to be investigative journalist, psychologist, a best friend. It can also be the overcritical friend that is just going to the place that is annoying, as a feeling that you gotta push yourself and you gotta push your limit, or that you gotta dig in your sorrows. So it is important that within the skill and the inquisitiveness of the breather, there is a kindness in the observation, that when you walk through your room, you don't go around banging things, then that we don't go around in our inner space with a constant sense of complaint or constant sense of feeling too short, too old, too in pain. So the touch carries, a soft sense of compassion. So I'm feeling, I reach the ceiling of my inhale, and then I have the exhale. And the exhale brings the other side of feeling, the letting go. I have had this in me, and I'm going to allow it to dissolve, to evolve. And this, physically speaking, it feels a bit like a falling, like a sense of, falling onto yourself. Sometimes it can come accompanied with a sense of vertigo if you have gone through a period that you are very stressed for a long time and you try to relax. It's almost like you are looking for places to hook on your hands as you are falling through a crack on the ground. But if you place this in your daily life and you accustom your body to the feeling of not being constantly under emergency, eventually it feels quite pleasant. But from that pleasantness, from that baseline of allowing your body to abandon the fight, then relaxing, deep relaxation confronts you with some fundamental feelings that are hiding behind the anxiety or behind the stress. One of them is relief. We all like that version of relaxing, the sensation of letting go of a weight that is crushing your shoulders, and then you feel like, oh, why do I have to carry this? And you have a feeling of like, oh, yesterday was yesterday, or whatever he thinks is his problem, and you kind of have this feeling of being lighter after the release. So one of the feelings that we experience when we relax physically and in our felt experience is relief. But another feeling that comes is fear. When you abandon yourself, literally, when you abandon who you think you are and you fall back into not knowing, it's scary. It's scary because whoever I am in the daytime, whoever has created these patterns of behavior and these structures in my life and these relationships, I know it might be unsatisfying and disappointing at times, but I know. And every time I let go of the construction and I fall into the field of not knowing, it's a little death. But the knowing that you gotta return, the feeling that you might see something that then is difficult to integrate later on when you put the human suit, sometimes is daunting. And sometimes this keeps us away from really falling to our depth because we feel intimidated by what we might find there. If you have decided that you want to go there, you have your reasons, but you have decided that you want to go to your depth, then this fear is a stretch that we must traverse. Sometimes it's bigger than others, sometimes it's just a little like woohoo. Sometimes, depending where you are and depending how deep your practice becomes that day, can be really intimidating. And sometimes it can even turn and be completely exhilarating and just open up to an ocean of serenity that is absolutely amazing. But there is a crossover through a field of fear. And another one that it touches very tenderly and very nearly our human experience is sadness. You know, when you let go of something that was a pain in the ass, you can imagine how we feel relief. But some of the things that we let go are things that are just precious, you know. You are letting go of the memories of your baby being in your arms, or you are letting go of your youth, or a relationship that was filled with love but didn't work out. Living implies losing. Life makes no distinctions. Whether the experience is beautiful or is ugly, they are all destined to pass. Nothing stays. There is a wisdom in accepting this. There is a process in accepting this. But it is sad. So when we relax in our savasana, as we relax our body during the exhalation, we feel a tinge of fear and a tinge of sadness. And to the degree that I can integrate my sadness and my fear, to that degree, I get the relief of not being in resistance with the way things are, from which I can then meet life available. I can be present to live within the difficulties and the fears and the sadness because I don't see that it should not be there. I don't see that I should not feel it. I don't see the need to defend myself from it because I have become acquainted with both emotions in my exhales. And that is a relief. When you are not in resistance to fear and sadness, there is so much more space to appreciate beauty and to give yourself to others and to give yourself to love without constantly feeling that you have to resist and protect yourself. So we pay attention to the creation of the movement of the breath, and then we pay attention to the sensations that arise from how I feel the movement in my body. Both the creation of the movement and the feeling of the sensations that the movement creates, they have the two tempos, the yin and the yang of the breath, exhale, inhale, and then those two are meeting in these transitional moments that are like the two pearls of the breath. And through that portal is how I enter into the entirety of my breath experience. Mimsy, I think you're a little too noisy for the mic. Can you come a little later? So we have the string of movement, the string of perception. The third string that I wanted to talk about is what we can see through the breath from the other side. How can we guide the breath as a telescope or a microscope to orient it towards the recognition of our true nature? And in particular, within that true nature, the breath is particularly useful to look at the moment of union, to look at the idea of unity, to see the event of a duopole, of a polarity alternating from side to side with enough detail and perspective that you realize that is part of the same thing. When we are not looking, when we are sleeping, the breath continues. Spirit moves our diaphragm inside our body. If I pay attention, if I decide to pause the breath, to make it a little longer, a little slower, I enter into a room where another being is, and I co-create the breath with this other being. Whether this other being and I are two different ones or one and the same, I get to explore. I'm doing my pranayama practice and I'm consciously breathing for 20 minutes. All of a sudden a bird comes into the room. I'm going to look up, I'm going to catch the bird, I'm going to spend 5 minutes running around, and I'm going to go back to my seat. And as I return to my breath, I will immediately realize that during those 5 minutes, I have no idea about anything that happened with my breath. The bird, the noises, the situation will take all my attention out of my breathing, and yet I'm still breathing. I managed to do all that and return to the cushion without dying. The shift of authority between the one entity and the other, or the one side of me and the other side of me, is so seamless that whenever I come to my breath, he is there. Whenever I come to my breath, the bigger energy field that contains me and maintains me animated is already pulsating. So I'm coming into its pulsation to not only co-create it. Whatever I do is never going to be as amazing and as what he could do. But in the co-creation, I also get to see how do I fit in this. How are he and me the same? How are he and me different? So by these two colliding, we get one first possibility of the experience of unity. We had it before by being the mover, the breather, and the breathed, the actor and the theater. We have another experience of unity. We have the possibility of being the creator of an action and the recipient of the same action simultaneously. The mix of the inhale and the exhale, if you visualize the symbol of the yin and the yang, by turning into each other and moving in and out of one another in a continuous flow where you never really close your passage. Once again, when you start seeing wave after wave after wave, can you identify the individual wave, or you begin to see the pattern? So the whole breathing practice brings us closer and closer to a felt experience of unity. If you come from psychology, you have the oscillation between the conscious and the unconscious mind. If you come from neurology, you are going to have the conversation between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. But in either case, what you are doing is sitting at the center of an event or revolving door that seems to give you two faces, but the more you see the pattern, you realize is one single face. And if you take that towards yourself, as you breathe in and breathe out, the body, the breather, the breath, even the moments that you are kind of slightly oscillating between forgetting and returning, when you return, you were already there. So the experience becomes very full. And as you integrate the parts integrate in you as a one thing. And then I think this, this experience in meditation that sounds really esoteric, when the subject and the object merge into one, that you are so present with that which you are observing that somehow the two of you overlap, and there is no distinction in one, where one begins and the other one ends, and therefore by the two individuals, the thing and the witness, when they disappear, the only thing that is left is the action. And you read this, and sometimes the meditator is kind of like, will I feel that? In the breath is the actual place where this experience is so simple to feel. And yes, there is moments that it has this other more like esoteric, mystical flavor. But for the most part, it's a very simple, very here and now kind of experience. And then overall, to put all this amount of attention in one thing for, let's say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you concentrate all your attention and intention on the one thing. And this in itself creates a sense of being put together, of unity in the sense of you feeling that your thoughts, your actions, your feeling, your perception, your attention, your intention for a few minutes are all on the same boat. And that is also very restful. That is a relief on its own. To practice this, I have recorded a few sessions. They're all slow breathing in different positions with slightly different angles. There is an introduction. We land from whatever it is that we're doing in our day. Then we begin the breath practice, in which I have counted. So there is a count, a bit on the long side. If it is too much for you, cut it shorter, or fit 2 breaths in one of mine. And then at the end, there is in all of them a time to digest, to integrate, and to do a little savasana at the end. Something between 20 minutes and half an hour. Take the practice on moments that you are calm. Make sure that there is plenty of space before and after, so you don't have to rush. Sometimes modifying your breath changes a little bit the way you feel, and you need a little time to come back to you before you meet other people, so respect that. I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you have a beautiful practice with them. And above all, I hope you don't need these videos to breathe. Once you get the gist of it, what I really hope is that this inspires you to zoom in the way you breathe, what breathing means to you, what experience it creates in your body, and how beautiful of a portal to gaze at other realities, deeper realities of our existence as human beings it can become. Whether you make it into a formal meditation or pranayama practice, or it's just what you do when you drive or you walk, up to you. But zooming into your breath, isolating attention onto your breath for a few minutes a day, and then allowing that to permeate through the rest of the day in little moments here and there where you just touch your breath to create a a softer interpretation of our experience of reality, a kinder, more beautiful experience of our interpretation with reality, or it's an asset in your life that you really want to give yourself. So, whether with these videos or simply by yourself, enjoy your breath.